It was a Tuesday afternoon in late spring, the kind of day where the sun feels warm on your skin, but there's still a cool breeze that makes everything perfect. 8-year-old Lily was doing what she loved most, riding her bright pink bicycle with the white basket on the front. She'd gotten it for her birthday just 3 months ago, and every day after school, she couldn't wait to ride it around the neighborhood. The sidewalk in front of her house wasn't very wide, but it was smooth and safe. Her mom, Christine, always told her to stay on the sidewalk, never go in the street. Lily was a good kid. She always wore her helmet, even though some of the other kids made fun of her for it. She always followed the rules. That's just who she was. Christine was inside the house folding laundry and watching her daughter through the living room window. She did this every single day. Some people might think she was being overprotective, but Christine didn't care what anyone thought. Lily was her whole world. After her husband passed away 2 years ago from cancer, it had been just the two of them. Every moment mattered. Lily was singing to herself as she pedaled, some song she'd learned at school that week. Her brown ponytail swung back and forth as she rode. She waved at old Mr. Chen, who was watering his garden next door. He waved back with a big smile. This was their routine. This was their safe little world. But safety can shatter in a single second. Down the street, about 2 blocks away, a man was revving his motorcycle at a red light. The engine roared loud enough to rattle windows. He was in his mid-30s, wearing a black leather jacket despite the warm weather, and he was angry about something. Maybe he'd had a bad day at work. Maybe he was just an angry person. Whatever the reason, he was in a hurry, and traffic wasn't moving fast enough for him. When the light turned green, he shot forward like a rocket. Cars were moving too slowly in his lane, so he swerved. Not into the other lane where he should have gone, but onto the sidewalk. The sidewalk where people walked. The sidewalk where children played. The sidewalk where Lily was riding her bicycle. Christine saw it happen through the window. She saw the motorcycle jump the curb. She saw her daughter look up, confusion on her little face. She saw Lily try to turn her bike, try to get out of the way. But there wasn't enough time. There's never enough time when something like this happens. The impact was terrible. The motorcycle's handlebar caught Lily's left arm, and the force of it sent her flying off her bike like a rag doll. She landed hard on the concrete, her helmet cracking against the ground. The pink bicycle skidded away, one wheel still spinning. Christine was screaming before she even realized she was running. She burst through the front door so hard she nearly ripped it off its hinges. Her bare feet slapped against the concrete as she ran toward her daughter, and somewhere in the back of her mind, she could hear other sounds. Mr. Chen dropping his water hose, Mrs. Peterson from across the street yelling something, car brakes squealing, but the motorcycle didn't stop. The rider looked back for just a second, his face hidden behind a dark helmet visor, and then he gunned the engine. He swerved back into the street, weaving between cars, and disappeared around the corner. Just like that. He was gone. Lily was crying. Not the normal crying of a kid who scraped her knee. This was the kind of crying that comes from real pain. The kind that makes your stomach drop when you hear it. Her left arm was bent at an angle that arms shouldn't bend. Christine knew immediately it was broken, badly broken. "Baby, baby, I'm here," Christine kept saying, over and over like a prayer. She wanted to pick Lily up, hold her, make everything okay, but she was afraid to move her. What if something else was broken? What if she made it worse? Mr. Chen was there within seconds, his old knees somehow finding the strength to run. "I called 911, he said, his voice shaking. "They're coming. They're coming right now." Mrs. Peterson arrived next, her phone already in her hand. "I got the whole thing on my doorbell camera," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I got him. We'll find him." More neighbors came. They formed a circle around Lily, not crowding, but close enough to help if needed. Someone brought a blanket. Someone else brought water. This is what communities do when something terrible happens. They show up. The ambulance arrived within 6 minutes, but it felt like 6 hours. The paramedics were gentle and professional. They gave Lily something for the pain, carefully stabilized her arm, and loaded her onto a stretcher. Christine climbed into the ambulance with her daughter, holding her good hand, whispering that everything would be okay, even though she had no idea if that was true. At Tampa General Hospital, they rushed Lily straight to the emergency room. Doctors swarmed around her, asking questions, checking vitals, ordering x-rays. Christine stood in the corner, trying to stay out of the way but unable to take her eyes off her daughter. The x-rays told the story in black and white. Lily's arm was broken in 2 places, a compound fracture of the radius and a break in the ulna. She would need surgery. She would need pins and plates. She would need months of physical therapy, and even then, the doctors said, there might be permanent damage. She might never have full strength in that arm again. Christine felt like she couldn't breathe. She worked as a janitor at another hospital across town. She had insurance, but it was the bare minimum, the kind with high deductibles and lots of things that weren't covered. She did some quick math in her head, the ambulance, the emergency room, the surgery, the therapy, and felt sick. She was already working 2 jobs just to keep their small apartment and put food on the table. Where would she find money for this? But she pushed those thoughts away. Right now, her daughter needed her to be strong. The surgery was scheduled for the next morning. They admitted Lily overnight for observation. Christine stayed with her, sleeping in an uncomfortable chair next to the hospital bed, waking up every time Lily made a sound. Meanwhile, back at the house, the police had arrived. They interviewed Mr. Chen and Mrs. Peterson. They collected the doorbell camera footage. They took measurements of the skid marks on the sidewalk and photographed the cracked concrete where Lily had landed. They bagged the pieces of her broken helmet as evidence, but finding the rider wouldn't be easy. The license plate had been obscured, either on purpose or by dirt, they couldn't tell. The helmet hid his face. The motorcycle was a common model, black, nothing distinctive about it. It could be one of thousands in the Tampa area. Still, the police promised they would do everything they could. Hit-and-run cases involving children got priority. They would check traffic cameras, run down every lead, work around the clock if they had to. By that evening, the local news had picked up the story. A reporter stood in front of Christine and Lily's house explaining what had happened. A reckless motorcyclist struck an 8-year-old girl and fled the scene, she said into the camera. Police are asking anyone with information to come forward. They showed a photo of Lily from her school picture day, smiling with a gap where she'd lost her 2 front teeth. They showed her mangled pink bicycle still lying on the sidewalk. They interviewed Mrs. Peterson, who could barely get through her statement without crying. Someone at the news station posted the story on social media. Then someone shared it. Then someone else. By midnight, thousands of people had seen it. Comments poured in. People were angry. People were heartbroken. People wanted to help. In her hospital room, Christine had no idea any of this was happening. She was focused entirely on her daughter, who was sleeping fitfully thanks to the pain medication. Lily's left arm was in a temporary splint, waiting for surgery in the morning. Her face was pale except for the scrapes on her cheek and forehead. Christine kept thinking about that moment when she saw it happen through the window. She kept thinking about how helpless she'd felt, how far away she'd been, how she couldn't protect her baby. What kind of person hits a child and just drives away? What kind of person cares so little about another human being? She tried not to be bitter. She tried not to be angry. But sitting there in that hospital room, watching her daughter suffer, it was hard not to feel like the world was a cruel place sometimes. What Christine didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, was that this story was about to take a turn that nobody expected. That video from Mrs. Peterson's doorbell camera was making its way through the internet, moving from one screen to another, spreading further with each share, and eventually, it would land on the right screen, the screen of someone who could actually do something about it. Someone who wouldn't just feel bad and move on to the next post. Someone who had the resources and the heart to turn this tragedy into something different. But that was still to come. For now, Christine sat in the dark hospital room holding her daughter's hand, praying for the surgery to go well, praying for the strength to get through whatever came next. Outside, the sun had set. The hospital hallways were quiet except for the occasional beep of a monitor or the soft footsteps of nurses making their rounds. Somewhere in Tampa, a man in a black leather jacket was probably sleeping soundly, not giving a second thought to the little girl whose life he'd changed forever. But the internet doesn't forget. And sometimes when terrible things happen, the world finds a way to push back. Sometimes heroes show up in the most unexpected ways. Lily's story was just beginning, and it was about to become much bigger than anyone could have imagined. The surgery took 4 hours, 4 hours that felt like 4 days to Christine. She sat in the waiting room staring at the clock on the wall, watching the second hand make its endless circles. Other families came and went. Some got good news. Some got news that made them cry. Christine just waited. When the surgeon finally came out, still in his blue scrubs, Christine jumped up so fast she nearly knocked over her chair. The doctor smiled, and that smile was the first good thing she'd seen in 24 hours. "The surgery went well," he said. "We had to put 2 pins and a small plate in her arm, but everything lined up nicely. She's young and kids heal fast. With proper physical therapy, she should recover most of the function in that arm. Most of the function. Not all of it." But Christine would take what she could get. She thanked the doctor about a dozen times, maybe more. She wasn't even sure what she was saying. Relief does funny things to your brain. They let her see Lily in recovery. Her daughter was still groggy from the anesthesia. Her left arm now in a proper cast that went from her hand almost to her shoulder. She looked so small in that hospital bed, surrounded by machines and tubes. But she was alive. She was going to be okay. That's what mattered. "Hey, baby," Christine whispered, brushing hair away from Lily's forehead. "You did so good. You're so brave." Lily's eyes fluttered open. "Mom?" Her voice was scratchy and weak. "It hurts. I know, sweetheart. I know, but the doctors fixed your arm. You're going to get better. Where's the man?" Lily asked, and Christine's heart broke a little more. "The man on the motorcycle. Did he say sorry?" Christine didn't know what to say. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that some people in this world don't care? That some people hurt others and just drive away? She settled for a simple answer. "The police are looking for him, honey. They're going to find him." She hoped that was true. She really, really hoped that was true. What Christine didn't know was that at that exact moment, about 1,500 miles away in Los Angeles, someone was watching the video of her daughter getting hit. Someone with the power to actually do something about it. John Cena was sitting in his home office, scrolling through his phone between meetings. As one of WWE's biggest stars, he was used to seeing all kinds of things on social media. Funny videos, fan art, people asking for autographs or meet and greets. But this video stopped him cold. He watched it once. Then he watched it again. A little girl on a pink bike. A motorcycle swerving onto the sidewalk. The impact. The girl flying through the air. And then the rider just leaving, not stopping, not helping, just gone. John had granted over 650 wishes through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. He'd met kids fighting cancer, kids with heart conditions, kids who were fighting battles that would break most adults. And he'd seen firsthand how much a little bit of kindness could mean to a family going through hell. This girl wasn't sick, but she was a victim. And something about the story hit him hard. Maybe it was the way she'd been following all the rules, riding on the sidewalk like she was supposed to. Maybe it was the fact that the person who hurt her just didn't care. Whatever it was, John knew he couldn't just scroll past this one. He made a call to his coordinator at the Make-A-Wish Foundation. "Hey, I just saw a story about a little girl in Tampa who got hit by a motorcycle. Hit and run. The video's all over social media. Can you find out more about her situation?" His coordinator knew better than to ask why. When John Cena wanted to help someone, you just helped him help them. Within an hour, she had the information. The girl's name was Lily. Her mom was Christine's single mother, worked 2 jobs. The medical bills were already piling up and they hadn't even left the hospital yet. The police were investigating, but they didn't have any solid leads on the rider. John sat back in his chair thinking. This needed more than just a hospital visit. This needed something bigger. And he knew exactly who to call. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, was in Florida actually. He was doing some filming for a new movie in Miami, just a few hours south of Tampa. He and John went way back to their early days in WWE when they were just young guys trying to make names for themselves. They'd had some legendary matches. They'd become some legendary friends. The Rock picked up on the second ring. "John Cena, to what do I owe the pleasure? DJ, I need your help with something." John pulled the video up on his computer again. "I'm about to send you a video. Watch it and then let's talk." There was a pause while The Rock watched. John could almost feel his friend's mood shift through the phone. When The Rock spoke again, his voice had changed. It was quieter, more serious. "That's messed up, man. That's really messed up. I know. And here's the thing. This little girl and her mom, they're struggling. The mom works as a janitor. She's got no support system. And now she's looking at months of medical bills and therapy costs. I want to do something about it. What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking we do more than just visit her in the hospital. I'm thinking we make sure this guy gets caught. I'm thinking we make sure this family doesn't have to worry about money while they're trying to heal. And I'm thinking you and we make some noise about this." The Rock was quiet for a moment. He had 3 daughters of his own. The thought of someone hitting one of them and driving away made his blood boil. "I'm in. What do you need from me?" "I need you to help me put up a reward. Something big enough that people will actually pay attention. And I need your presence, man. When both of us show up for something, people listen. I'm filming until Thursday, but I can drive up to Tampa Friday morning. Let's make this happen." They spent the next hour on the phone making plans. They called the Tampa Police Department and spoke directly to the detective handling the case. They offered a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of the hit-and-run driver. The detective was shocked. That kind of money would definitely get people talking. They also called a lawyer they both knew in Tampa, a guy who did personal injury cases and had a reputation for actually caring about his clients, not just the paycheck. They explained the situation and asked if he'd be willing to take Christine's case pro bono, help her navigate the insurance companies and medical bills. The lawyer agreed immediately, but the biggest part of their plan was the visit itself. They wanted to surprise Lily, to show her that people cared, that she wasn't alone. They coordinated with the hospital, swore everyone to secrecy, and made arrangements for Friday afternoon. Meanwhile, back in Tampa, Christine was learning just how expensive medical care could be. The hospital's billing department had sent someone to talk to her about payment plans. The woman was nice enough, but the numbers she was showing Christine were terrifying. The surgery alone was over $40,000. Then there was the hospital stay, the medications, the follow-up appointments, and they hadn't even started talking about physical therapy yet. Christine did the math in her head. Even with her insurance covering some of it, she was looking at tens of thousands of dollars out of pocket. She'd have to pick up more shifts, maybe get a 3rd job. She'd figure it out somehow. She always did. Lily was set to be discharged on Friday morning. The doctors said she could recover at home as long as Christine brought her back for regular checkups. They gave her a huge stack of papers, prescriptions, therapy recommendations, wound care instructions, warning signs to watch for. It was overwhelming. Mrs. Peterson and Mr. Chen came to visit Thursday evening. They brought flowers and a teddy bear for Lily, and they brought something else too: hope. The police had gotten several tips thanks to the doorbell camera footage. They were following up on each one. It was only a matter of time before they found the guy. "That video's been shared thousands of times now," Mrs. Peterson said. "Everyone's talking about it. People are angry. Someone knows who that man is." She didn't mention that 2 very famous people had seen the video too. She didn't know. Nobody knew yet. Friday morning came. Christine packed up Lily's things. The stuffed animals people had brought, the get-well cards from her classmates, the balloon bouquet from her teacher. A nurse came with a wheelchair, which Lily thought was kind of cool even though she could walk just fine. They were about to leave when one of the nurses stopped them in the hallway. "Actually, can you wait just a moment? There's some paperwork I need Christine to sign." Christine sighed. "More paperwork? Always more paperwork." She told Lily to wait in the wheelchair while she went back to the nurse's station. That's when it happened. That's when everything changed. 2 men walked around the corner and Lily's eyes went wide. She'd seen these faces on TV 100 times. She had posters of them on her bedroom wall. John Cena and The Rock were walking straight toward her, and she was pretty sure she was dreaming. "Are you Lily?" John Cena asked, kneeling down to her level. Lily couldn't speak. She just nodded, her mouth hanging open. The Rock knelt down too, that famous smile spreading across his face. "We heard you had a rough week, champ. We came to check on you." Christine came back around the corner and stopped dead in her tracks. She looked at the 2 men kneeling next to her daughter, and for a second she thought maybe she'd hit her head and this was all a concussion dream. But no, that was really John Cena. That was really The Rock. In her daughter's hospital. Is it really you?" Christine managed to say. "It's really us," John said, standing up to shake her hand. "And we're here because we saw what happened to your daughter. We're here because we want to help." What happened next felt like something out of a movie. They told Christine and Lily they wanted to take them back to Lily's room for a minute. Once inside, with the door closed, they explained everything. The reward money, the lawyer who was going to help with the bills, the pressure they were putting on the police department to make this case a priority. But the biggest surprise came when The Rock pulled an envelope out of his jacket pocket. "Christine, I'm a father. I can't imagine what you've been going through this week. The fear, the stress, the worry about your daughter and how you're going to pay for everything. So here's what we're going to do." He handed her the envelope. This should cover all of Lily's medical expenses, everything. The surgery, the therapy, the follow-ups, all of it. And there's extra in there too, because we know you're going to need to take time off work to take care of your daughter. We don't want you worrying about money right now. We want you focused on helping Lily heal. Christine opened the envelope with shaking hands. When she saw the check inside, she actually gasped. It was more money than she'd make in 2 years. Maybe 3. Her eyes filled with tears and she couldn't speak. We're also going to make sure the person who did this gets caught, John added. We're going to make enough noise about this case that they won't be able to hide. Someone out there knows who hit your daughter and drove away, and with the reward we're offering, they're going to talk. Lily, who had been quiet this whole time just staring at her heroes with huge eyes, finally found her voice. Why are you helping us? You don't even know us. The Rock smiled at her, a real smile, not the showman smile he used in the ring. Because you're a fighter, Lily. You got knocked down and you're going to get back up. That's what champions do. And sometimes champions help other champions. They stayed for 2 more hours. They took pictures with Lily. They signed autographs. They called other kids in the pediatric ward to come meet them too, because why not spread some joy around? They talked to Christine about her life, about Lily's interests, about what happened that day. They listened. Really listened. Before they left, John Cena did something that would later go viral on social media. He looked straight at the camera that the hospital's PR person was holding and spoke directly to the hit-and-run driver, to the person who hit this little girl and drove away. We're coming for you. The police are coming for you. Justice is coming for you. You made a choice to hurt a child and run. Now you have to live with that choice. We won't forget. Tampa won't forget. And we won't stop until you're held accountable. The Rock added his own message. There's $50,000 on your head now. Someone you know saw you that day. Someone you told. Someone knows. And that $50,000, that's going to make them talk. It's only a matter of time. The video would be everywhere by that evening. Every news station would pick it up. Social media would explode. The pressure would become unbearable. But right then, in that hospital room, it was just 2 superstars and a little girl who'd been through something terrible. The Rock gave Lily a custom championship belt with her name on it. John gave her his signature headband. And they both gave her something more valuable than any gift. They gave her hope. As they left the hospital, The Rock turned to John. This isn't over until that guy's in handcuffs. Agreed, John said. Let's make sure this story has the right ending. And with their fame, their resources, and their determination, they were about to do exactly that. The video hit the internet like a bomb going off. Within an hour of John Cena and The Rock leaving the hospital, every major news outlet had picked up the story. CNN, Fox News, ABC, NBC, they were all talking about it. 2 of the biggest names in entertainment had just put a $50,000 target on a hit-and-run driver's back, and the whole country was watching. But it wasn't just the news stations. Social media went absolutely crazy. The video of John and The Rock's message to the driver got shared hundreds of thousands of times. Then millions. People were using hashtags. They were posting the doorbell camera footage. They were talking about Lily, about Christine, about how this could have been anyone's daughter. Detective Raymond Hayes sat in his office at the Tampa Police Department, staring at his phone as notification after notification came through. He'd been a cop for 23 years, and he'd never seen public pressure like this on a case. His captain had already called him twice. The mayor's office had called. Even the governor's press secretary had reached out to ask about updates. The tips started coming in immediately. The department's phone lines were jammed. The email inbox was overflowing. Everyone suddenly had information about a guy they knew who rode a black motorcycle. Everyone had a neighbor or a coworker or a cousin who'd been acting weird lately. Most of the tips were garbage. People who didn't like their neighbor and saw an opportunity to cause trouble. People who genuinely wanted to help, but had seen a black motorcycle 3 weeks ago and figured it might be worth mentioning. One woman called to report her ex-husband, even though he didn't own a motorcycle and lived in Oregon. But buried in all that noise, there were a few tips that actually mattered. A mechanic from a shop on the south side of Tampa called in. He said a guy had come in Wednesday morning, the day after the accident, wanting some work done on a black Honda motorcycle. Nothing major, just some cosmetic stuff. But what caught the mechanic's attention was that the guy seemed really nervous. Jumpy. He kept asking how long the work would take, if the bike would look different after. The thing that stuck with me, the mechanic told Detective Hayes over the phone, was that he wanted me to replace the left handlebar and mirror. Said he'd hit a mailbox, but there wasn't any damage to the bike except those parts, and the handlebar had this little dent in it right at the end, almost like it had hit something small, or someone small. Detective Hayes felt his pulse quicken. Did you get a name? Yeah, he paid cash though. Said his name was Tony Briggs. I got his number because we needed to call him when the bike was ready. Within 20 minutes, they had Tony Briggs' address. Within 40 minutes, they had his whole life story laid out on a table. 34 years old, 3 previous traffic violations, 1 DUI from 2 years ago, suspended license that he'd gotten back just 6 months ago, worked construction but had been fired from his last 2 jobs for showing up late. No wife, no kids, lived alone in a small apartment near the port. They pulled security footage from traffic cameras near the accident scene. Nothing useful from the moment of impact, but they traced routes that a motorcycle might have taken to leave the area. They found him on one camera 2 blocks away, still going way too fast. The timestamp matched. The bike matched. They checked the camera at the mechanic's shop. There was Tony Briggs dropping off his black Honda, wearing the same leather jacket from the doorbell camera footage. His face was clear as day. They had him. Detective Hayes called his team together. 6 officers, all experienced, all ready to go. We're going to do this by the book, he told them. This case has the whole country watching. No mistakes, no problems. We go in, we make the arrest, and we do it clean. They showed up at Tony Briggs's apartment Friday evening just as the sun was setting. 3 patrol cars, lights off. They didn't want to spook him. Detective Hayes knocked on the door, his hand resting on his service weapon, though he didn't expect trouble. Guys like Briggs usually folded pretty quick when the cops showed up. The door opened. Tony Briggs stood there in sweatpants and a stained t-shirt holding a beer. He looked at the detective, then at the uniforms behind him, and his face went pale. Tony Briggs? Detective Hayes asked, though he already knew the answer. Yeah? Tony's voice cracked a little. We have a warrant for your arrest in connection with a hit-and-run incident that occurred Tuesday afternoon. You have the right to remain silent. Tony didn't run. He didn't fight. He just stood there as they cuffed him, his beer bottle dropping to the floor and spilling across the carpet. As they walked him to the patrol car, neighbors came out to watch. Someone was filming on their phone. By the time they got Tony to the station, that video was already online too. The interrogation lasted 3 hours. At first, Tony tried to play dumb. He didn't know what they were talking about. He hadn't been anywhere near that neighborhood. His bike was in the shop because he'd hit a mailbox just like he'd told the mechanic. But Detective Hayes had done this 1,000 times. He knew how to read people.
He knew when someone was lying.
And Tony Briggs was a terrible liar. We have you on camera, Tony, multiple cameras. We have the doorbell footage showing you hit that little girl. We have traffic cameras showing you fleeing the scene. We have footage of you at the mechanic's shop trying to get rid of evidence. And we have the handlebar from your bike, which we've already seized from the mechanic. You want to guess what we're going to find when we test that dent for DNA? Tony's shoulders slumped. He put his face in his hands. I didn't mean to hit her, he said quietly. I was just trying to get around traffic. I was late for work. I didn't even see her until the last second. But you saw her after you hit her, Detective Hayes said, his voice hard. You saw her on the ground. And you left her there. You left an 8-year-old child bleeding on the sidewalk and you just drove away. I panicked. I didn't know what to do. You could have stopped. You could have called 911. You could have done literally anything except leave a child suffering on the pavement. Detective Hayes leaned forward. Do you know that little girl's name? It's Lily. Do you know her arm was broken in 2 places? Do you know her mother is a single parent who works 2 jobs just to keep a roof over their heads? Do you know what you did to their lives? Tony was crying now. Not the kind of crying that makes you feel sorry for someone. The kind of crying that comes from knowing you messed up bad and there's no way out. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You can tell that to the judge, Detective Hayes said. The news of Tony Briggs's arrest spread just as fast as everything else in this case. John Cena tweeted about it. The Rock posted on Instagram. The hashtag that had been trending all week exploded again. Justice was coming just like they'd promised. But the legal system moves slow even when the whole world is watching. Tony was charged with leaving the scene of an accident with injuries, reckless driving, driving with a suspended license, and a few other violations. His bail was set at $100,000, which he couldn't afford. He'd be sitting in jail until the court date. That court date came 3 weeks later. The courthouse was packed. News crews lined the sidewalk outside. Inside, every seat in the gallery was taken, and right in the front row, sitting directly behind Christine and Lily, were John Cena and The Rock. They'd promised they wouldn't forget. They'd promised they'd see this through. And there they were, two of the busiest people in entertainment, taking time out of their schedules to sit in a Tampa courthouse because they'd made a promise to a little girl. When Tony Briggs was brought in, looking smaller somehow in his orange jumpsuit, he glanced at the gallery and his eyes went wide. He'd probably seen John Cena and The Rock on TV 1,000 times, but seeing them there in person staring at him with cold eyes must have been terrifying. The judge was a woman named Patricia Morrison, 58 years old with silver hair and a reputation for being tough but fair. She'd been on the bench for 15 years, and she didn't care who was in her courtroom or how famous they were. She cared about the law. Tony's public defender tried his best. He talked about how Tony had panicked, how he'd made a terrible mistake but he wasn't a bad person, how he'd never been in serious trouble before, how he was deeply remorseful. But the prosecutor, a sharp woman named Jennifer Walsh, wasn't having it. She showed the doorbell camera footage to the court. She showed photos of Lily's injuries. She brought up Tony's previous traffic violations, his DUI, his pattern of irresponsible behavior. This wasn't a split-second mistake, Jennifer said. This was a choice. Mr. Briggs chose to drive recklessly. He chose to swerve onto a sidewalk where children play. He chose to flee after hitting a child, and then he chose to try to cover it up. Every step of the way, he chose himself over a little girl who was fighting for her life. Then it was time for victim impact statements. Christine stood up, her hands shaking as she held a piece of paper with notes she'd written. But when she started talking, she didn't need the notes. "My daughter is 8 years old," she said, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. "She loves reading and drawing and riding her bike. Or she used to love riding her bike. Now she's afraid to go outside. She has nightmares about motorcycles chasing her. She wakes up crying because her arm hurts. The doctors say she'll probably have limited strength in that arm for the rest of her life. She wanted to be a softball player. Now we don't know if she'll ever be able to throw a ball properly." She looked directly at Tony. "You didn't just break her arm that day. You broke her sense of safety. You broke her trust in the world. And you didn't even care enough to stop and make sure she was okay." Christine sat down and The Rock reached forward to squeeze her shoulder gently, a gesture of support, of solidarity. The judge took a recess to consider everything. When she came back 30 minutes later, her expression was grim. "Mr. Briggs," she said, looking down at Tony from her bench, "I've listened to your attorney's arguments. I've listened to your apology. But I've also looked at your record. I've looked at the evidence. And most importantly, I've listened to the victim's mother describe what you did to her daughter's life." She paused, letting the silence fill the courtroom. "What you did wasn't just illegal. It was cowardly. You endangered a child, caused serious injury, and then fled to save yourself from consequences. The law exists to protect people like Lily from people like you, and I intend to use the full extent of that law." She sentenced Tony to 18 months in the county jail. After that, 5 years of probation, 300 hours of community service, specifically working with child safety programs. His driver's license would be permanently revoked, and he was ordered to pay restitution to Christine for Lily's medical expenses, though everyone in the room knew he'd probably never be able to pay even a fraction of what he owed. When the gavel came down, there was no cheering in the courtroom. Judge Morrison didn't allow that. But outside on the courthouse steps, people applauded. News crews rushed forward. John Cena and The Rock made brief statements to the press. "This is what accountability looks like," John said into the microphones. "You hurt someone, especially a child, you face the consequences. The system worked today," The Rock added. "This little girl and her mother showed incredible strength through all of this. They're the real champions in this story. Tony Briggs is going to have a lot of time to think about what he did. And hopefully this sends a message to everyone out there. You don't get to hurt people and just walk away." Later that evening, back at their small apartment, Christine and Lily watched the news coverage together. Lily was still in her cast, would be for another month at least. But she was smiling. Not because she was happy someone went to jail. She was too young to really understand what that meant. but because she felt safe again. Because people had stood up for her. Because the bad thing that happened didn't get to just be forgotten. "Mom," she said, curled up against Christine on the couch. "Did we really meet John Cena and The Rock?" Christine laughed, the first real laugh she'd had in weeks. "Yes, baby. We really did. And you know what? They're coming back to visit you next month. They want to see how your arm is healing." "Really? Really?" Lily thought about this for a moment. Then she said something that made Christine's heart swell. "When my arm gets better, I want to help other kids who got hurt. Like they helped me." And that, Christine thought, is how you turn something terrible into something good. That's how you teach your child that even when bad things happen, there are still good people in the world. People who care. People who show up. People who don't just scroll past when someone needs help. The story could have ended there with justice served and a little girl healing. But John Cena and The Rock had one more surprise up their sleeves. Something that would change Lily's life in ways nobody expected. That surprise was coming soon. The weeks after the trial felt like learning to breathe again. Lily started physical therapy 3 times a week at a clinic downtown. The therapist, a kind woman named Beth, who'd been doing this for 20 years, worked with Lily on strengthening exercises, range of motion, all the little movements that most people take for granted. At first, it was hard. Really hard. Lily would try to lift her arm and it wouldn't go where she wanted it to. She'd try to grip a ball and her fingers wouldn't squeeze tight enough. Some days she'd get so frustrated she'd cry. Some days Christine would cry right along with her, sitting in the waiting room, wishing she could take all that pain away. But kids are tougher than we give them credit for. Week by week, Lily got stronger. The exercises that seemed impossible in October were merely difficult by November. Her grip improved. Her range of motion increased. Beth would mark her progress on a chart, and Lily loved watching those numbers climb higher. Christine had been able to cut back to just one job, thanks to the money the Rock and John had provided. It meant she could take Lily to therapy herself, could be there for every appointment, every small victory. It meant she could actually be a mom again, not just someone running from one job to another, barely keeping their heads above water. She'd also started taking online classes. 2 nights a week after Lily went to bed, Christine would sit at their small kitchen table with her laptop and study nursing. It was something she'd always wanted to do but never had the time or money for. Now somehow she had both. The universe had taken something terrible and twisted it into an opportunity. True to their word, John Cena and The Rock stayed in touch. Not just token gestures either. Real, genuine contact. John would FaceTime with Lily every couple of weeks, asking about her therapy, about school, about her friends. He'd send her motivational videos when Beth told him she'd had a particularly tough session. The Rock did something even more unexpected. He'd created a private Instagram account just for Lily, where he'd post silly photos of himself at the gym or on movie sets, always with captions designed to make her laugh. "Just did 100 push-ups. Your turn, champ. Okay, you can do 5. Work your way up." Stuff like that. Little things that reminded Lily she had people in her corner. But the surprise they'd mentioned, that was still coming. It arrived in the form of a phone call in early December. Christine was washing dishes when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, probably a spam call, but something made her pick up. "Is this Christine?" A woman's voice, professional but friendly. "Yes, who's calling?" "My name is Rachel, and I'm calling on behalf of John Cena and Dwayne Johnson. They wanted me to ask you something. Would you and Lily be available to travel to Tampa Bay on December 15th? Christine dried her hands on a dish towel, confused. "Travel? We live in Tampa." "Oh, I know. I meant travel to the stadium. The Tampa Bay Rays are having a special community event that day, and John and Dwayne would like Lily to participate in something. If you're comfortable with it, of course." "Participate in what?" "They'd like her to throw the ceremonial first pitch." Christine nearly dropped the phone. "The first pitch? At a real baseball game?" "Well, not a game exactly. It was the off-season, but still. A stadium, a crowd. Throwing a pitch with the arm that had been broken, the arm she'd been working so hard to heal. I don't know if her arm is ready for that," Christine said carefully. "We've actually been coordinating with Beth, her physical therapist. She thinks Lily's ready. It doesn't have to be a hard throw, just a gentle toss. But the symbolism of it, of using that arm to do something positive, something public, Beth thinks it could be really good for Lily's confidence." Christine thought about her daughter, thought about how hard she'd been working, thought about the nightmares that were finally starting to fade, thought about how Lily had said she wanted to help other kids. Okay, Christine said. We'll do it. The next 2 weeks were a flurry of preparation. Beth worked with Lily on the throwing motion, making sure she could do it safely without risking re-injury. They practiced with a soft foam ball at first, then gradually worked up to a real baseball. Lily's throw wasn't going to win any awards. It was gentle and cautious, but she could do it. That's what mattered. The Rays organization went all out. They sent Lily a custom jersey with her name on the back. They coordinated with local children's hospitals to invite other kids who'd overcome injuries or illnesses. This wasn't just about Lily anymore. It was becoming something bigger. John and The Rock both cleared their schedules. John was supposed to be filming in Vancouver that week, but he moved things around. The Rock pushed a press junket back 2 days. They'd made a promise to see this through, and they meant it. December 15th arrived cold and clear. Tropicana Field, the Rays' indoor stadium, was hosting what they called Community Courage Day. About 5,000 people showed up. Not a full crowd by baseball standards, but plenty of people. Families, kids, local organizations. The energy in the building was electric. Lily was nervous. Christine could see it in the way she kept fidgeting with her jersey, in the way she held her left arm close to her body, protective. They were in a private room under the stadium waiting. Beth was there, offering last-minute encouragement. A Rays representative kept popping in with updates. Then the door opened and John Cena walked in, followed by The Rock. Both were wearing Rays jerseys too. "There's our pitcher," The Rock boomed, his smile lighting up the room. He scooped Lily into a gentle hug. "You ready for this, champ?" "I'm scared," Lily admitted, her voice small. "What if I can't throw it? What if everyone laughs?" John knelt down in front of her, taking her good hand in his. "You know what I do when I'm scared? When I'm about to go out in front of thousands of people and I'm worried I'll mess up?" Lily shook her head. "I remember that everyone out there wants me to succeed. They're not there hoping I'll fail. They're there cheering for me. And you know what? Every single person in that stadium today is cheering for you. They know what you've been through. They know how hard you've worked. Whether that ball goes 10 feet or 50 feet, they're going to cheer like crazy. Because you're not just throwing a baseball, Lily. You're showing everyone that you don't let bad things keep you down." The Rock added, "And hey, you've got us going out there with you. If anything goes wrong, we'll just start wrestling in the middle of the field. That'll distract everyone." He winked and Lily giggled despite her nerves. When it was time, they walked through the tunnel together, Lily in the middle, John on one side, The Rock on the other, Christine right behind them. The roar of the crowd got louder as they approached the field. Then they stepped out into the light and the noise became overwhelming. 5,000 people on their feet cheering. The stadium's big screen showed Lily's face, showed her story in quick clips. The doorbell footage, carefully edited to not show the impact. Photos of her in the hospital, clips from the trial, images of her working hard in physical therapy. The announcer's voice boomed over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lily and her mother, Christine. 10 weeks ago, Lily was the victim of a terrible hit-and-run accident that left her with a shattered arm. But with the support of her community, the advocacy of John Cena and The Rock, and her own incredible determination, she's here today to show us all what courage looks like." The cheering got even louder, if that was possible. Lily looked up at the crowd, her eyes wide. Christine was crying happy tears, trying to film everything on her phone with shaking hands. They walked to the mound, the place where professional pitchers stand. Someone handed Lily a baseball. It looked huge in her small hand. John and The Rock stepped back, giving her space but staying close enough that she knew they were there. The Rays mascot, Raymond, was behind home plate in full catcher's gear, ready to receive the pitch. He gave Lily an exaggerated thumbs up that made her smile. Beth had taught her to throw from a shorter distance to protect her healing arm. So they'd moved home plate closer, maybe 30 feet away instead of the regulation 60. Nobody cared about the distance. This wasn't about baseball. Lily looked at the ball in her hand, her left hand, the one that had been broken, the one that doctors said might never be strong again. She looked at the crowd. She looked at John and The Rock. She looked at her mom. Then she wound up just like Beth had taught her and threw. The ball sailed through the air in a gentle arc. It wasn't fast. It wasn't particularly straight. But it made it all the way to Raymond, who caught it with theatrical flair, falling backward dramatically like it had been the pitch of the century. The stadium absolutely erupted. People were on their feet, screaming, cheering, crying. The Rock scooped Lily up and put her on his shoulders. John was clapping so hard his hands probably hurt. Christine was full-on sobbing now, the good kind of sobbing that comes from overwhelming joy and relief. The big screen showed Lily on the Rock's shoulders, her face split into the biggest smile, her left arm raised in victory. That image would be on the front page of the Tampa Bay Times the next day. It would be shared millions of times online. But right then, in that moment, it was just a little girl who'd overcome something terrible, celebrating with 5,000 people who were genuinely happy for her. After the pitch, they didn't just leave. The Rock and John had arranged for Lily to meet the other kids who'd been invited. Children who'd survived cancer, kids who'd lost limbs in accidents, young people who'd faced challenges that would break most adults. Lily talked to them, these other fighters, and something shifted in her. She realized she wasn't alone. She realized her story could help other people feel less alone too. There was a reception afterward with food and games. The Rock challenged kids to arm wrestling contests and let them all win. John taught them some of his wrestling catchphrases. They signed autographs until their hands cramped. They took photos until the Rays photographer ran out of memory cards. But the most important moment came when the crowd had thinned, when it was just a few families left. A mother approached Christine, holding the hand of a boy who looked about Lily's age. His arm was in a cast, too. "My son was hit by a car last month," the mother said, her voice trembling. "He's been so depressed, so angry about his injury. But watching Lily today, seeing her throw that pitch, he asked me if he could start trying harder in his therapy. Because if Lily could do it, maybe he could too." The boy looked at Lily shyly. "You were really brave," he said. Lily looked at her mother, then at John and the Rock, then back at the boy.